Good Tuesday morning, and thank you for watching Live Impact News on 13 News Now Plus. Whether you are watching us on our stream or on YouTube Live, we appreciate your viewership. My name is Eugene Daniel, and I am in our streaming studio in Hampton Roads, Virginia, alongside producer Sarah Calloway and meteorologist Taylor Stephenson, who has some great news for us here in the Tidewater region. But first, I want to show you really quickly some things that we are monitoring at the moment. At the bottom there, you see that GOP leadership have just started a press conference, with today being a very big day on a wide variety of topics, particularly when it comes to the future funding for DHS. That is what we see at the top. That is a live stream for a hearing that is set to take place in the House today with top immigration government agencies ahead of that Friday deadline for lawmakers to reach a decision on funding the Department of Homeland Security. Okay, a lot of things that we're monitoring. We're going to get to all of that. We're going to get to it live for you. But first, we got to talk about this forecast, because for the first time in a few weeks, Hampton Roads is finally breaking into the 50s. Taylor, this is the best news I've heard all day.
I know. I feel like I got a smile on everybody's face today, even my own. Because it is going to be such a nice day for us here in Hampton Roads in northeastern North Carolina. I am tracking temperatures finally back near normal. Our normal high temperature starting today is 53 degrees and will continue to rise. By the end of February, high temperatures around normal should be around 56 degrees. And today we're finally back in the 50s. I think a welcome warm up is an understatement. I think people are screaming for joy at this, because as Eugene mentioned, this is the first time in 18 days that we've seen, well, I guess technically 19 if you actually count the day of, but almost 3 weeks since we've seen temperatures back in the 50s plus range. And when we did have temperatures above 50 or at 50, it was 60 degrees on January 22nd. On January 23rd, we made it to 49 degrees, so just shy. And every single day since January 23rd, we have not hit 50 degrees. So it's nice and warm today, and it will be mild tomorrow before a cool down happens overnight into Wednesday night into Thursday morning. That will bring us yet another round of cold air for Thursday and Friday. Now, after Thursday and Friday, we get back to the 50s, but we swap out the sunshine for rain. And so rain comes through on your Valentine's Day weekend. Some people do have plans. So I want to talk more about the Valentine's Day weekend plans that you may have and how the weather plays a factor in that. Satellite and radar for us is right now fairly quiet. We did have a few passing snowflakes in the eastern shore this morning. That's the only precipitation I'm tracking for the course of the day. Now, tomorrow morning, I am tracking some rain coming through for the morning commute. High pressure is anchored to our south. What that does is brings in a south wind. South winds transport warm air into the region. So we had a warm up this morning. I'm also watching, as you see, this stalled front, the blue and red front, that is going to become a warm front. That warm front will push to the north, bringing yet another big boost of warmth into the mid-Atlantic, climbing our temperatures back to the 50s today. Even from this time yesterday, so 10 a.m. Monday, we are 10 to 20 degrees warmer than that already. And that's a big statement, because right now from our Thompson Creek Window Company sky view, it shows that temperatures are in the lower to middle 40s. Yesterday's high temperatures were only at 33 degrees at the Norfolk International Airport. Area-wide, we only made it to the middle 30s and upper 30s. So we're already beating that by 5-ish degrees, and we haven't even hit the afternoon yet. So a really nice warm up. It is feeling a bit cooler in some places, especially around the coast like Manio or Virginia Beach, where we're feeling more like the upper 30s, lower 40s, but still noticeably much more mild already for the late morning. Walking you through the rest of your day, we'll stay sunny and temperatures will climb to the 50s by noon, with highs today in the middle 50s around the coast, with upper 50s and lower 60s as you get around places inland. Now, the eastern shore will be one of the areas where we really won't see the 50s, and that's because the eastern shore is a peninsula, so it's surrounded on three sides by water. Now, the water temperatures are only in the 30s. So when you have the winds, and I'll show you with my cursor, we'll go back here so I can get the cursor back. So when you have temperatures, there we go. So when you have temperatures in the 40s, it's because of the cold water around it. See how these arrows are actually moving north into the peninsula? That is showing that that's transporting some of that cooler air just over the cold Atlantic waters onto the land, and that land breeze, or excuse me, the sea breeze to the land will keep it cooler there in the eastern shore. Now later on tonight, because we'll have gusty winds up to about 25 miles an hour, those southwest winds will keep it mild overnight. Temperatures by around midnight still in the upper 40s and lower 50s. But notice how rain starts to really creep into the picture right as you get into midnight to 1 a.m., maybe a passing shower. And here we go right around 6:30 to 7 a.m. and we have scattered showers throughout the area. Now these showers should be mainly light in nature, but it could cause a little bit of damper on the work commute. So be careful on the roads, but I'm not expecting any widespread or heavy rainfall. The rain will continue to sink to the south through 9 a.m. So that's over northeastern North Carolina and then moving out by the late morning, early afternoon on Wednesday. Now you can see temperatures inland still in the upper 50s, but around the coast we're only in the upper 40s. So it's going to be a big difference in temperatures between those inland and those around the coast tomorrow, and you can see that in our forecast for your Wednesday. Tomorrow morning starting off in the mid 50s where we'll be this afternoon, but then we'll slowly start to tumble down to the lower 50s by the afternoon once the skies start to clear. Now the cold air behind our front that brings us the rain and the gusty winds tomorrow, that will settle in by Thursday night. So Thursday and Friday, I'm only expecting temperatures into the lower 40s. Now, the weekend. People may have plans for Valentine's Day weekend. Good news is the models are showing that most of the rain should hold off until very, very late on Valentine's Day. Now, it will be sunny on Valentine's Day morning and increasingly cloudy throughout the afternoon. So once we get to around 7 p.m., we're talking overcast skies. Still not raining, but it will be on the mild side too. Temperatures in the lower 50s. Why the 50s are important in this forecasting is that it's very unlikely any of this precipitation will be changing over into any type of winter weather, even through the overnight, because temperatures overnight Saturday, so Valentine's Day night into Sunday morning, should remain above freezing. So we are talking maybe a cold rain to start off with, but by the afternoon, highs should climb back to the lower 50s. So we're talking widespread rain through the morning into the afternoon and evening on Sunday, with the heaviest rain coming through during the late afternoon and the evening time. So if you do have plans on Sunday, you may want to think about, just for now, some contingency plans that bring them inside, or at least have a poncho or an umbrella handy if you do have to be outdoors. So here's a look at your weekend preview, kind of wrapped in a bow for your Valentine's Day gift. Temperatures in the lower 50s for Saturday, increasing cloud cover and rain very late, especially if you live south. On Sunday, widespread rain, also windy, and temperatures in the lower 50s. Now, here's some other good news that might put a smile on your face, Eugene and Sarah, is that temperatures for the long range trends look to continue to be in the 50s through the majority, if not all, of next work week, where some temperatures during the afternoon might challenge the lower 60s. Now, what did not put a smile on my face and actually wiped it away is I just talked to my mother who lives in Atlanta, and she said it's going to be 75 degrees today there. So I'm unhappy because I'm not in Atlanta.
Well, you can't talk to outsiders. That was your first mistake.
You're right. An outsider who happens to be my mother.
Yes. Gotta cut her off.
Gotta cut her off just because she tried to make me jealous over 75
Listen,
degrees.
both of our moms are in Georgia, in that Atlanta area, and trust me, my mom does the same thing. That's when I just start texting her.
Yeah, well, I guess she had to say the 75 degree stuff because she was upset she was sitting in traffic for 25 minutes. That's why she really called. So they can get traffic, we'll get no traffic, but milder temperatures. But I'd rather be 75 degrees, but all I have to say, that's just a joke, obviously. Next week, we should be somewhere in the middle 50s to upper 50s. One day or two may challenge the 60s. It's going to be a really nice, warm week so far from what the long-range models are telling us. But, of course, everything can change 10 days out, so we'll keep you updated on that. But good trends when it comes to those warmer, more mild temperatures for next week. Your 570 forecast shows temperatures in the 50s today and tomorrow, back to the 40s Thursday and Friday. And while we'll have morning showers on Wednesday, we'll clear out by Wednesday afternoon, and sunshine settles in for Thursday and Friday, along with that cooler air settling in. By Saturday, we're right back into the lower 50s, and we stay in the low 50s through early next week. But again, remember, we do have rain all day Sunday that will linger into Monday morning.
Taylor, I love it. I love the fact that we are able to walk outside. I'm not going to bring out a coat, not a jacket, not a nothing. Now, 50 is not 80, and as you said, it's not 75.
Right.
But it's good enough for me after what we've been experiencing the last, 18 days, you said? So thank you. Goodness, it finally broke. I feel like, what's the saying? Ding dong, the witch is dead. Ding dong.
Finally.
The cold. Well, it just got knocked down, but I'm happy for it.
Me too. I think a lot of people are happy about it. What about you, Sarah? Are you happy about the temperatures finally warming up? She said, yeah.
While she wears a jacket in here because it is
freezing.
It's colder in here than it is outside right now. Taylor, anything else you think that we need to know looking ahead? I know you were talking about Valentine's Day. A lot of people are hopefully have their plans together or they're getting their plans together.
You better have your plans together. If you have somebody in your life that you love, you better have your plans together right now.
Well, there goes your PSA. Listen.
It's Tuesday.
It is Tuesday, which means there's still time.
No. There's no more time left. You have until noon today to figure it out. Otherwise,
noon today, someone is probably at work right now. They can't do it at noon.
Then why they didn't do it over the weekend? They didn't have work.
Don't let her pressure you.
No, let me pressure you.
It's okay. Just get it done.
Peer pressure.
Get it done.
Sometimes it works.
I'm with Taylor.
Thank you, Sarah.
I'm always outnumbered. But when it comes to the forecast, again, you said that it should be decent for this weekend.
It should be decent this weekend, especially Valentine's Day, where we're going to be mainly dry and temperatures should be back in the 50s. So there's no excuses.
Okay, no excuses. Take a walk, get some flowers, take a walk, set up a picnic. Who knows?
Okay, the walk was a little bit too minimal. A picnic, that's fine.
Minimalistic, that's sometimes the way to go.
Low effort. It's okay.
Anyway, we'll debate this later for sure. But Taylor, we appreciate you for coming on.
Of course.
Again, get outside, touch some grass, look at the sun, do something today if you're in Hampton Roads. We finally got a day in the 50s. Okay, there is plenty of things happening right now. Here are some of the live looks that we have. We have GOP leadership there at your bottom right. They are speaking right now. Press conference here this morning. At the top right there, you are seeing the hearing in the House over top immigration government agencies as a DHS funding deadline approaches for Friday. And there at the left, you are looking at the president of Azerbaijan, who is holding a press conference alongside who you cannot see currently, Vice President J.D. Vance. There you go. They're panning over, and you should see him there. There's our Vice President. We're monitoring all of this, and we're going to have so much more for you on the other side of this quick 2-minute break. Thank you for sticking around for us on 13 News Now Plus here for Live Impact News. Okay, I told you we were watching several things happening at the moment. These are all live, not only here in the U.S., but across the country there, as you see. Here's where we're going to start right now. I know that the GOP leadership there at your bottom right, they are currently holding a press conference. We're going to get to that. But first, we want to start with this House hearing of 3 top immigration government agencies who are all speaking before the House Committee on Homeland Security. This as that deadline looms for DHS funding. Lawmakers need to reach an agreement on it before DHS runs out of money. So here's who you're going to hear over the next few minutes. You're going to hear Director Todd Lyons for ICE. You're going to hear Rodney Scott for Customs and Border Protection, the commissioner there, and U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services Director Joseph Edlow. They are appearing before this panel today, and then they will be before the Senate on Thursday.
Principle our country stands for. DHS, led by Secretary Kristi Noem, must be held accountable for its lawlessness immigration operation. They are reckless, creating chaos in our communities, terrorizing adults and children alike, and undermining our moral authority as a nation of liberty and rule of law. Last month, an ICE agent shot and killed Renee Good, a Minneapolis mom, in cold blood as she drove away from him. After killing her, the agent called her a disgusting name I won't repeat here. Other agents refused to allow a nearby physician to treat her. Democrats called for accountability. Instead, Secretary Noem blamed the victim, Ms. Good, and attempted to gaslight Americans with false claims that Ms. Good was a domestic terrorist. Renee Good was nothing of the sort. She was a mom, a wife, a neighbor, and an American citizen who did not deserve to die at the hands of her own government. She should be alive today. Ever since, the Trump administration has devoted the full resources of the federal government to blocking a legitimate investigation into Ms. Good's killing. If that isn't a sign of guilt, I don't know what is. Federal prosecutors had a warrant to collect evidence from Ms. Good's vehicle for a civil rights investigation into ICE's use of force, but FBI Director Kash Patel and other Trump administration officials demanded they drop it. Career prosecutors, duly bound to the rule of law, not the political prerogatives of the White House, resigned in protest. Blocking an investigation into the government's use of force against one of its own citizens is a self-dictatorship, not democracies. Every American should be outraged. Democrats tried to get answers in the aftermath of Ms. Good's shooting. We called on Acting Director Todd Lyons to testify at the committee's hearing 3 weeks ago. Unfortunately, he turned down the committee's invitation. This is part of a pattern of the Trump administration's refusal to comply with regular congressional oversight. Committee Democrats have sent multiple letters to ICE and CBP on critical issues, but most of them, 10, have gone unanswered. Mr. Chairman, I ask unanimous consent to include all 10 of these records into the record, letters into the record.
Without objection.
ICE has blocked members of Congress from visiting its detention facilities, even after reports of horrific conditions, detainee abuse, and a detainee being murdered in a DHS facility. I was one of those individuals who parted to a lawsuit to try to get ICE to just follow the law that says members of Congress can visit ICE facilities and present themselves at any time. So I understand that it's still being litigated, but I've been given authority to go, and I plan to do it this week just to test ICE's adherence to the law. Mr. Lyons is here today, nearly a month after we invited him. I guess DHS needed time to get his story straight before he came to testify under oath. Fearing more violence from federal law enforcement, Democrats have also called on DHS to rein in immigration agents and their brutal attacks on Americans immediately following Ms. Good's murder. But DHS ignored our pleas. Instead, Greg Vino, who styled himself in Nazi attire and takes joy in deploying tear gas at Americans, continued to roam around Minneapolis with his masked gang, terrorizing people and violating their constitutional rights. And tragically, our worst fears were realized.
Okay, we're going to continue to follow that. You can hear there, they are definitely touching on the situations that we've seen unfold in Minneapolis. We've had 2 shooting deaths at the hands of ICE officers there in Minnesota, and that with all of the tensions that we've seen over the last month and a half there, is going to be a big topic of concern during this House hearing right now. Those 2 individuals, if we can pull them back up there, Sarah. Sarah Good, who has a connection to right here, Norfolk, Virginia, graduated from Old Dominion University, not far from where our studios are located, and Alex Preddy there, both of them dying after being shot by ICE agents and ICE officials, and leading to a lot of questions when it comes to immigration enforcement there in the city of Minneapolis. We're going to get back to that right now. But again, all of this coming as that deadline looms for the Department of Homeland Security to get its funding. Lawmakers have to agree to something, right? And they've been stalemated so far. Well, here is the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, speaking from a podium. Maybe he'll give some clarity into where he believes the 2 parties are this morning.
It's going to be over 5%. I think 5.4% is the estimate for what Q4 would finally yield. And Q1 of this year is expected to continue that surge. And we think that's going to happen all the way through the year. And so do the voters, so do the American people, according to the polls. Under Republican leadership, the U.S. economy has consistently grown and far exceeded all the expectations that they told us that they would happen. The CBO and others were way off. And the tangible, immediate benefits of our policies are indisputable. Interest rates are down. Inflation is down. Gas prices are significantly decreased and have hit all-time lows in decades. Tax rebates are at an all-time high. You got tens of millions of American families will be able to keep more of their money in their own pockets, and all of that was by design. We made promises. We're keeping our promises. By every conceivable metric, Americans are better off today under Republican governance than they were under the Democrats, and these trends are only going to continue. Democrats keep talking about affordability. Republicans are delivering it. That's the theme. That's what happens here all the time. Democrats give you lots of talking points, and a lot of the outlets of the media amplify their messaging. But we are delivering actual results. We're not just talking about it, we're doing it. And that's what people see. Let me talk about the Save America Act, because you've heard a lot about it this morning. It is very important. Another thing that is very important to the American people, and another thing that the polls show that everybody's in favor of. Common sense legislation to just ensure that American citizens decide American elections. It really is that simple. Remember, House Republicans have already passed the SAVE Act during the last Congress and the current Congress. I was one of the original champions when we first had the press conference out on the House steps to introduce the SAVE Act. Chip Roy and I and Mike Lee in the Senate and others were there to say that this is long overdue, because we know that non-citizens had been participating in elections, and it was a simple thing to say that we need to make sure you have to have proof of citizenship when you register to vote. Everybody should be in favor of that. I mean, it's what the law requires and anticipates, and we've got to make sure it happens. So now we have the Save America Act. It's identical legislation as the SAVE Act on the proof of citizenship, but as you heard, now voters would have to display a valid ID to participate in federal elections. Again, a no-brainer. So in other words, it simply requires you are who you say you are in order to vote. And if that sounds like a no-brainer, it's because it is. The question is often asked by pollsters, and the polling consistently shows 80 to 90% of Americans believe that proof of citizenship and proof of a valid ID should be required to vote. And there are a few issues in American politics that have that level of bipartisan support. This is one of them. The issue has so much support because it is just common sense. Americans need an ID to drive, to open a bank account, to buy cold medicine, to file government assistance. As is noted by the leader, you even need an ID to attend events of most Democrat politicians and even the Democrat National Convention. So, why would voting be any different than that? They can't answer that question. And so they come up with all these crazy excuses of why they can't support it. They've attempted so many arguments to oppose the passage of this simple legislation. First, they argued that we were too close to a federal election to make changes to voting procedures. That was last Congress, and of course that was nonsense. Then they argued that non-citizens and unregistered individuals don't actually vote. And then we proved that they did, and so then they changed their argument again. Then they argued that the SAVE Act disenfranchises married women who would have to change their last names. That was actually, you remember, that was a whole line of argument. And now, this is their current argument, now Democrats are saying breathlessly, the SAVE Act would result in voter suppression and voter disenfranchisement. It's nonsense. Do you know what actually disenfranchises voters? It's when non-citizens participate in our federal elections and counteract the votes of registered American voters. That's what we have to stop. Democrats have gone so far as to call this the return of Jim Crow laws. That's what you heard Chuck Schumer say, and he just has no shame. It's not the first time Schumer said this. Now, just think of the history of it. In 2021, when Georgia state legislators, when they did it in the state, they passed the election integrity legislation. Chuck Schumer came out, many national Democrats, they called it Jim Crow 2.0. He did that thing with his hands and pounded the podium. Okay, well, here's what really happened. Georgia experienced record turnout in the 2022 election after the reforms, particularly among minority groups. And in fact, the poll commissioned by the University of Georgia after the election, they went to ask people how they felt about that election and how it was conducted. And they talked to black voters. And the respondents to the poll said, they said, did you have a poor experience in the election? And guess how many black voters in Georgia said after the reforms they had a poor experience? Zero. Literally, no one said that. Not only were their arguments blatant fear-mongering, Chuck Schumer and everybody, they were dead wrong, too.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break here. Your time right now is 10:27. Give us about 2 more minutes, and we'll be right back with more. Welcome back to Live Impact News. Right now, we're going to go to Washington, D.C., where that hearing in the House has now gotten underway. There, we've been telling you about this. Top immigration enforcement officials in our nation right now are speaking before a House committee. This as we're waiting for lawmakers to reach an agreement on funding the Department of Homeland Security, and also as we've seen questions surrounding immigration enforcement across our country, particularly last we've seen in Minnesota, particularly the Minneapolis area. So let's listen into that hearing right now.
Increasingly perform under difficult conditions and intense public and political scrutiny. But these brave men and women deserve our gratitude and thanks. It's my privilege to be here today joining my colleagues from Immigration and Customs Enforcement and Citizenship and Immigration Services. Our agencies work in partnership to secure the homeland and uphold the integrity of our immigration system. CBP has spent the last year rebuilding what was an intentionally broken border. As I informed Congress in 2021 and again in 2023, the open border policies of the Biden administration all but eliminated any meaningful border and it replaced it with a porous geographic line defined by record-high encounters with illegal aliens, overwhelmed facilities, and a workforce that was stretched so far beyond their capabilities that hostile nations and the cartels exploited our border at will. That all changed on January 20th, 2025, under the leadership of President Trump. We have now implemented effective policies, established unified priorities and objectives across all federal departments, and empowered our workforce to do their jobs by simply enforcing the laws that already exist. We have imposed consequences for those who break our laws, the laws that this body enacted. And today, the United States, because of these efforts, enjoys the most secure border in our nation's history. But this progress did not happen by accident. It's a result of a comprehensive approach to border security. We ended catch and release, we prioritized detention and removal authorities, and we sent a clear message that illegal entry into the United States will not be tolerated. And the numbers speak for themselves. We have achieved record low illegal crossings between ports of entry. Border Patrol apprehensions along the southwest border totaled over 90,000 for the entire year. That's a number that used to represent a single month under the Biden administration. Daily encounters have dropped by 95%, averaging about 250 per day, compared to 5,000 a day during the Biden administration. Our increased enforcement also resulted in the seizure of over 617,000 pounds of illicit narcotics. That's nationwide, an 8% increase over the prior year. This included nearly 11,000 pounds of fentanyl and more than 186,000 pounds of methamphetamines. This is what having a secure border looks like. None of this would have been possible, though, without the vision and leadership of President Trump and the historic investments made in border security. The One Big Beautiful Bill, a $65 billion investment, is enabling CBP to modernize border infrastructure, deploy additional advanced technology, and to grow our workforce. Since January 2025, CBP is building smart wall at record levels. We're installing high-tech attributes where the Biden administration had shut it off. We're installing water barriers along the Rio Grande River, which denies criminals access to these routes. But that is not all. We're investing in technology at our ports of entry, non-intrusive inspection equipment, biometrics, and advanced surveillance to improve our ability to know what's coming into this country, the land, air, and sea, at and between the ports of entry. CBP's workforce is without a doubt the greatest asset that we have. The One Big Beautiful Bill is investing historic amounts of money in recruitment, hiring, and retention and training to ensure that we have the most highly qualified and capable law enforcement professionals securing our border. Due to the collaboration across all federal departments, the resultant record low encounters, CBP has been able to surge resources to support ICE's targeted enforcement operations across the nation. CBP is integrated with ICE and other partners to identify and remove dangerous criminals and others who remain in the country illegally. As recent events have demonstrated, though, our officers and agents are increasingly facing an unprecedented level of aggressive interference and intimidation when executing the laws that you have asked them to enforce. These attacks on federal law enforcement personnel are coordinated and well-funded. This is not peaceful protest. No law enforcement officer should be put at personal risk simply for doing the job that we have asked them to do. I thank you for your continued support of CBP's mission, and I look forward to answering your questions today.
Thank you, Commissioner. I now recognize Director Edlow for 5 minutes to summarize his opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Garbarino, Ranking Member Thompson, and members of the committee. It is an honor to speak to you about the priorities and progress of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services. I'm grateful for your partnership as we work together to uphold the rule of law, protect our citizens, and safeguard our homeland. Let me begin by expressing my appreciation to President Trump for his trust in me and to Secretary Noem for her leadership at the Department of Homeland Security. I'm proud to serve alongside a workforce that's deeply committed to advancing the President's agenda, protecting our communities, and restoring integrity to America's legal immigration system. As Director of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, my vision has been straightforward and clear. Restore accountability to our immigration system and ensure that it serves the interests of the American people first and foremost. Today, I want to highlight some of our most significant accomplishments: ending the exploitation of immigration programs, putting American workers first, protecting our communities from public safety threats, protecting national security, and combating immigration fraud. Fraud isn't just a paperwork issue. It's a national security and public safety concern. Often those who wish to do us harm exploit weaknesses in our system. Over the past year, USCIS has made nearly 33,000 fraud referrals to law enforcement, a 138% increase over previous years. We conducted thousands of site visits to homes and workplaces and thousands of social media checks to ensure aliens aren't espousing anti-American sentiment. Moreover, our fraud detection and national security team completed over 21,000 investigations, identifying fraud in approximately 65% of those cases. In Operation Twin Shield in Minneapolis-St. Paul back in the fall, we uncovered marriage fraud, visa misuse, and student visa abuses, leading to denials of immigration benefits, arrests, and removal proceedings. This work led to Operation Paris, where we continue re-examining thousands of refugee cases in Minnesota, conducting thorough background checks and in-person reviews. We've also strengthened our vetting policies. If someone falsely claims U.S. citizenship to get a public benefit or try to vote, we hold them accountable through denial of citizenship or loss of immigration status. We've tightened screening to determine whether claimed marriages and family relationships are legitimate. And we've changed regulations to employment authorization is no longer automatically extended. Now we require more frequent renewals so that we can vet aliens more frequently and ensure that they deserve to remain in the country. Additionally, we've taken action to end the exploitation of immigration programs. Mass humanitarian parole programs were being abused by the prior administration. So we've restored them to Congress's original intent, allowing those benefits on a case-by-case basis. Secretary Noem also ended decades of temporary protected status for several countries, returning the program to what Congress intended: temporary protection, not permanent status in the United States. Moreover, this administration is doing more to ensure the integrity of our elections. We enhanced the SAVE program so states can verify citizenship of those on their voter rolls more effectively. Since January 2025, we've processed over 58 million queries, and 27 states are participating. Additionally, federal agencies ran nearly 206 million SAVE queries last year to identify fraud and preserve public assistance benefits for lawful U.S. residents and citizens. We're also putting American taxpayers and communities and workers first. We affirmed that aliens should be self-reliant, not dependent on public assistance, and that their sponsors are liable for the cost of public benefits that they access. The Department of Homeland Security is also working to rescind the 2022 public charge rule, restoring our discretion to determine if an alien will rely on government assistance. We've proposed protecting American jobs by prioritizing H-1B visas for higher skilled, higher paid workers so that companies can't use those visas merely as a way to get cheaper non-citizen labor. We've also streamlined agricultural visa processing to better support American farmers. A major milestone was implementing the One Big Beautiful Bill, which added new fees for certain immigration processes. USCIS collects those fees, but only retains a small amount of the money, while the rest goes to other agencies and deficit reduction. Finally, protecting the American people is at the heart of everything we do. After the attack on 2 brave service members of the National Guard last November, Secretary Noem directed us to review immigration benefits for aliens from high-risk countries. In closing, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services is restoring integrity, accountability, and security to America's legal immigration system. These accomplishments reflect the dedication of our workforce and the transformative leadership of President Trump and Secretary Noem, both of whom have allowed USCIS to do the job it was created by Congress to do. We stand ready to continue working with Congress to protect the homeland and uphold the rule of law. Thank you, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Director Edlow. I now recognize Acting Director Lyons for 5 minutes to summarize his opening statement.
Good morning. Chairman Garbarino, Ranking Member Thompson, distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the invitation to discuss the critical work U.S. Immigration and Customs is doing every day to carry out President Trump's agenda, to keep America safe, restore order to our communities, and return.
Okay, we are going to continue to follow that hearing today, listening to top immigration officials as that deadline for DHS funding looms towards this Friday. But when we come back from break, you can see there, that is Senator Chuck Schumer. He is joined by the family of a victim of Jeffrey Epstein who died by suicide in April. They're joining lawmakers and other Epstein survivors in Washington today to announce a new law in an effort to eliminate the statute of limitations for sex trafficking. We'll have more from that press conference here in the next 2 minutes. Okay, thank you for staying with us here for Live Impact News on 13 News Now Plus. Right now, we're going to take you to a live press conference held by Senator Chuck Schumer. He is joined by the family of Virginia Giuffre, a victim of Jeffrey Epstein who died by suicide in April. They are introducing a new law called Virginia's Law that aims to eliminate the statute of limitations on sex trafficking charges. Let's listen in.
Users by waiting survivors out. Our law, Virginia's law, changes that. It allows survivors to seek accountability when they're ready, when they're strong enough, supported enough, able to face the weight of civil litigation. Sometimes it takes years to recuperate from the horror that occurred. Why should the government say, well, we're setting an arbitrary time when you are able to pursue your case? Our law makes clear that abusers and those that enable them cannot escape responsibility by running out the clock. It makes clear that the law will empower survivors to pursue justice, and it recognizes something survivors have always known. Time does not erase harm. Time does not erase harm. Jeffrey Epstein depended on silence and fear, on a system that protected power instead of protecting people. Today we are saying no more. This bill carries Virginia Giuffre's name because she spoke when so many were told not to. And because her story and the story of the survivors standing here today, we salute you again, all of you, for your courage. These nice faces, it shouldn't have happened to you. It shouldn't have happened to you. So, no survivor should ever be told again that the law failed them and that time mattered more than truth. The survivors of Jeffrey Epstein have waited long enough. Virginia waited long enough. The time for justice is now, and Congress must act. So now let me call on our great leader in the House, Representative Teresa Leger Fernandez. Go.
Thank you so much, Leader Schumer, for your amazing work on this issue, which is not new. You have championed these issues for many, many, many years in the House and in the Senate. But I want to also acknowledge the survivors. We have shed tears together because what happened was horrible. The cover-up and the abuse that continued by refusing to acknowledge the pain and the crimes and everything that happened was also an injustice. And that's what we are here to do today, to say that justice delayed is indeed justice denied. And one of the lines that the survivor shared with me early in the many meetings we've had, and it's a chilling warning that Jeffrey told them. He gave them this warning. He told the women and young girls, I have the government, I have the banks. In other words, you are powerless. Imagine hearing that from the man who abused you. Imagine being a young girl, a young woman already traumatized and being told that the system, the government, the institutions, the courts, the powerful are on his side. That he and those to whom you were trafficked are untouchable. That the world is made up of the powerful who are above the law, above reproach, and you are disposable as a mere object of sexual use and abuse. And for too long, those sexual predators have been protected by their wealth and power. And now, with the help of Donald Trump and Pam Bondi, the pedophiles and sexual predators are being protected by our government. But today, we're one step closer to proving Epstein wrong. But this bill is bigger than Epstein. It's bigger than the abuse that the victims endured. It takes years for victims of abuse to feel safe enough to come forward. And time should never be a weapon in the abuser's arsenal. Virginia's law eliminates the statute of limitations for key federal civil claims brought by survivors of trafficking and sexual exploitation. It includes a look-back window, so survivors who were previously barred, who were told, no, you do not have access to the courtroom, so they have time to now go back and seek justice. And it clarifies that traffickers cannot escape accountability by committing abuses in another jurisdiction. You don't get to escape prosecution by simply putting predators and victims on a plane to a private island or a mansion in Florida or a ranch in New Mexico. Because justice should not depend on a calendar. Justice should not depend on geography, and it should never depend on how powerful your abuser is. To Virginia Giuffre's family, thank you for letting us use her name in this law. It's her courage that we are honoring today with Virginia's law. Her courage unlocked the first set of gates that were protecting the rich and powerful. This bill will unlock the doors to the courthouse for the survivors. And to every Epstein co-conspirator and sexual predator, we're coming for you. And to Donald Trump and Pam Bondi, how dare you? How dare you use the Department of Justice, a government agency which by its name is intended to bring justice, to use it to prevent justice, to protect yourself and that predatory circle of abusers. And so I join with the senator and with the leader. Yes, let's pass this bill. Let's prove Epstein wrong. And now I want to recognize, as I was talking to Sky and Amanda Roberts, we talked about how they couldn't have imagined that this day would come. And we talked about how, yes, it's been a long journey. But before Virginia, there was one of those big arroyos or chasms that you see in New Mexico, right? There was no way to cross it. But what Virginia did was build a bridge. And now we are crossing that bridge because of the bravery and the words and the wisdom. And I'm sorry for the loss of Virginia. But she has left something so powerful for all victims. And so I'd now like to recognize Sky and Amanda Well.
That was a tearjerker. I am the crier in my family. I'm just going to throw that out there. So, all right. Hello, everyone. My name is Sky Roberts, and I am the brother of Virginia Roberts Giuffre. I am deeply honored to stand here today alongside some of the most extraordinary people you will ever meet, including World Without Exploitation, Congressman Chuck Schumer, Congresswoman Teresa Ledger Fernandez, survivors of Jeffrey Epstein, and the legendary Sigrid McCauley. No. Known to many of us as Siggy. I want to begin with a single word. A word that meant everything to my sister. A word we will not stop fighting for until real justice is served. And that word is change. Virginia's dream was to inspire and empower survivors to come forward. In a world that too often turns away from abuse and pushes it into the shadows, she wanted to bring light. That light is change. Virginia's dream was to inspire and empower survivors to come forward. One of the main missions of her nonprofit, SOAR, was to eliminate the statute of limitations on adult sex trafficking. She talked about it all the time while elevating the voices of survivors, alongside her publicist and dear friend, Deanie von Muffling. Today, we give Virginia her voice back. We amplify the voices of survivors around the world. Today, we send a clear message to perpetrators everywhere by introducing Virginia's Law. We are introducing Virginia's Law because survivors deserve justice, not expiration dates. Change must mean justice, not someday, not in speeches, not in private settlements, justice in law, justice in court, and justice in the form of consequence. Virginia's Law is more than legislation. It is a change in the truest form. It challenges how we see, how we confront, and how we respond to sexual abuse and sex trafficking, not just in theory, but in reality. We do not take this moment lightly. We are holding an overwhelming mix of grief, loss, and pride. And if our voices shake and our tears fall, it is only because of the depth of our love for our sister. Grief without action is another kind of silence, and Virginia did not survive what she survived just to be silenced again. And with that, I'd like to turn that over to my wife, Amanda.
Virginia was a passionate voice, a fierce warrior, and an unwavering advocate for survivors everywhere. She named what others were afraid to name. She stood up to wealth, status, and power, and she proved that having money does not guarantee exoneration in the eyes of the poor. Virginia's purpose was always to create lasting change. Her truth and resilience helped spark a monumental shift in how survivors are seen and heard. But she also knew cultural change is not enough. She saw the legal gaps survivors fall through, and she was determined to close them at the legislative level. Her wish was clear: to reform the statute of limitations. When a child, teenager, or adult experiences sexual abuse, it is a profound violation of both the body, mind, and spirit. The mind often protects itself in the only ways it can, through denial, disassociation, and silence. It can take years, even decades, before the walls of trauma begin to crack, and a victim can truly understand what happened. It takes time to unlearn grooming. It takes time to release the shame that never belonged to them in the first place. Statistically, many survivors do not disclose until around the age of 40. Virginia understood this not as a theory, but as a lived experience. Virginia's law does more than honor her legacy. It protects the future of every survivor. It says legislatively and legally, we see you, we believe you, and what happened to you matters. It says you deserve the right to seek justice, no matter the status, wealth, or power of the person who harmed you, and no matter when the abuse occurred. To every member of Congress, mothers, fathers, sisters, and brothers, we ask you to stand with us, stand with survivors, and say no more. No more silence, no more systems that protect the powerful and deny justice to everyone else. No more laws that treat survivors as though time can erase harm.
You just been watching a press conference there with Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer and others, including the family members of a victim of Jeffrey Epstein, sharing a new law that they hope will get done so that they can get rid of the statute of limitations for sexual exploitation there and sex trafficking victims. You can hear from the family as to why obviously this is so important for them. Their family member died by suicide in April, and they have just been advocating ever since so that something can be done to help not only their family, but anyone else who could become a victim of sex trafficking and those crimes. We do have to take a quick break. We'll come back in about 2 minutes, but on the other side of this, we're going to talk about something that is impacting businesses and people all over the world, artificial intelligence. But specifically, what should companies think about when it comes to implementing them into their everyday workspaces? Give us about 2 minutes and we'll be right back for Live Impact News. Thank you for sticking with us here for Live Impact News. It's a question that a lot of people and businesses are thinking about right now. What is the future of artificial intelligence? Specifically, what does it mean for jobs and people across the world and right here in the Commonwealth? Let's talk about that. Joining us in studio this morning, we have Dr. Barbara H. Smith, corporate business strategist, talking about AI, its impact here in Virginia, and what companies and business leaders need to consider when it comes to implementing it into the workplace. Dr. Smith, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. It is a pleasure and honor to be here.
Pleasure to have you here as well. We know that AI is here. It is here and it is here to stay. My first question to you is, how is artificial intelligence changing job roles in Virginia, and which industries are most likely to feel its impact?
Wow, what a great question. First of all, I hear people say all the time, AI is the future. No, AI is now. And what companies can do right now, it's not necessarily diminishing or decreasing everybody's job. What it is it's enhancing if you know how to use the tool. So here's what I suggest to my clients. You have to get ahead of this curve. The technology is not going anywhere, much like it would be ludicrous to use a fax machine in 2026. And so it's leaning into the technology, learning about the technology so that leadership can lean in, learn the technology, and lead their teams to effective, ethical use of this technology.
So let's lean into that, right? When it comes to these new skills that people need to kind of be aware of when it comes to AI, what are the new skills and how can people kind of gravitate or build themselves to where they are as of use with artificial intelligence in their companies?
That's another great question. So start small. First of all, right now there are two camps, leadership and corporations that are not using the tool at all or banning it. And there are people who are using the tool but using it unethically. And so what I train leaders to do is to take a snapshot in time. What are you doing that is redundant? What are you doing that is repetitive? What can be done to do research more effectively? That's where AI's strengths lie. And so don't go full on if you have not started yet. But those who are using the tool understand that if you're not using it ethically and with compliance, your company is at risk because you have employees that are using the tool whether you think they are or not. So the reskilling and the retooling of skills will help you research better, manage better, lead better. It doesn't replace the human elements of compassion, empathy, leadership skills. How do you lead a team to be more effective? So skills, upskilling, and new skills are emerging all the time. The people who are grabbing hold of this software, hardware, whatever it is, when it comes to AI, and learning how to use it effectively are the leaders and leadership that will strive and succeed in this new age. It's just change management.
I want to ask a follow-up question when it comes to ethics. I think for a lot of people, that's part of the question here, right? What are the rules of engagement for artificial intelligence? Could you give some examples of what you would define as something that is not ethical for maybe an employee or an employer in using AI?
Absolutely. I work also in the higher education space. And what's unethical is to ask AI a question and take it word for word and put it somewhere. First, without checking that it's true, because AI does make mistakes. And second, by not giving credit to the fact that you did use an AI tool to find the information. Those are two very simple, unethical ways of using AI. And so let's flip the script and talk about what is ethical. Suppose I do research for a university and I use AI to do the research. In other words, to find the articles. That's where the power of AI is. It can search the entire globe of information and give you back ways or exact passages, articles, periodicals, peer-reviewed information that you can now research yourself instead of you having to do all of that research. Then you are to add a line in your text, in your in-text, in your reference, in your citation that says, used AI in this search. That's ethical.
I love those examples that you gave, really broke those down. In terms of economic growth, obviously that's something that we would all like to see here in the Commonwealth. Are there any opportunities that AI provides for economic growth in Virginia?
That's another great question. There are all kinds of ways to grow in this AI space. There are new leadership roles coming out, AI strategic engineers, all kinds of different ways to use the technology, the bandwidth of using the equipment that is needed to man these systems, policy and procedures, how to cultivate what is ethical and unethical in a policy and procedure. That's the lane that I'm really involved in right now. It's risk management, it's return on your investment. All of those things are going to be areas where jobs are going to grow, because right now it's kind of like being in the Wild Wild West. People are doing all kinds of different things that are not legal, ethical, not prudent for their business to succeed. But as we go down this path, change management to me is one of those areas that is also going to provide additional opportunities, because to be able to see the technology, see the change, and guide their people through it, leadership is going to need to have those kinds of skills.
Yeah, I'm still waiting to see how everything unfolds when it comes to setting parameters for the use of artificial intelligence. I know that's been a conversation even amongst certain hearings in, Capitol Hill, what we could potentially do from a legal standpoint to kind of make sure AI doesn't go to, as you referred to it, the Wild Wild West for forever. On that same kind of note, right, we're talking about all of the great opportunities that artificial intelligence can present for economic growth. What are the dangers of relying, if there are any dangers, relying too heavily on AI in your business?
Well, one of the things I'd like to present is you can use AI heavily when you're doing research. There is really not a lot of danger there. Where the danger lies is when private information, personal information, PII, personally identifiable information, is exposed to AI. Because now you have exposed your company, trade secrets, those types of things to the entire world. So we have to place guardrails around our information and around our people. The other thing I want to make very, very clear is, yes, this technology is wonderful in a lot of ways, but it's also very risky, and not just risky, but it could cause damage to your brand if the wrong information gets into the wrong hands. The third thing I'd like to add to that conversation is we still need human beings, because human beings have empathy, compassion. You cannot teach a tool, a bot, to have compassion. And so where people get afraid that they're losing their jobs, when leadership embraces the technology and puts guardrails around the things that are important, you still have to have leadership skills in order to manage people. And so that's my caveat about the jobs being taken by AI. AI, the tool, is like a spreadsheet. It's like a Word document. It is not going to take jobs, but people who are able to use this technology most efficiently, those are the people that are going to be taking jobs.
I was just having this conversation with a friend recently, and they posed the question, just kind of think, in thinking ahead, what industries aren't impacted by AI? And I really struggled to figure that out. I mean, right now I'm sitting there thinking about it. I don't know. Can you think of any industries that, AI would not potentially take over outside of maybe farming or those guys? I mean, I can't think of any.
There are none that I can think of. That doesn't mean that there aren't any. Mm-hmm. But what I can tell you is, when you say take over, people who say they're not going to use AI. If you use Google, you're using AI. If you're using GPS, you're using AI. If you ever said, "Hey Siri, hey Alexa," you're using AI. It's all artificial intelligence, but we have to grab hold of the right way to use the technology. And that's my my bandstand. That's my soapbox to stand on, and that we are all using the technology, but how we use the technology is the most important thing.
Okay, so with that, there are people who say, I won't use it. I have some people in my family who are just like that, Dr. Smith. They say, I refuse. And you talked about Alexa and Siri. They will not say those names. But, since we're talking about, the evolution of how things are going, and you have those people, but you also just have people who may not be technologically savvy.
Right.
How would you coach and encourage someone to take those baby steps to become familiar with AI, because we know it's going to be and is already such an influencer for employment and for the workforce?
AI is embedded in our society today. There is really no getting around it. If you use an ATM machine, if you use any kind of a machine, period, you are potentially using AI. So what I teach people, especially the elderly, those who are not tech savvy, it's not about the technology. It's about making sure that you're using what you have in a more efficient way. So what do I teach? I teach slowly. I teach in plain English. And so I ask questions like, what are the things that cause you the most angst? What are the things that take you the most time? And then I show them simplistic ways to use the technology to make their lives simpler. And, most of the time I don't tell them that it's AI. I just show them how to do something that's going to make their life easier.
Well, you've certainly made this conversation easier. I know that as much.
Thank you
And
so much.
we certainly appreciate you coming in. Is there anything else that you would like to make sure our viewers hear when it comes to artificial intelligence in the workplace before we go to break?
Just want you to know that it's not something to be feared. It's something to be used. It's something to manage. And for leadership out there that is looking for ways to gain compliance and to get a return on your investment, just check us out, BHS and Associates, BarbaraHSmith.com.
And there you heard her, Dr. Barbara H. Smith, corporate business strategist, coming in and speaking on a very important topic when it comes to artificial intelligence and employment across the region and the country. We appreciate you for coming in and breaking that down so well.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Okay, everybody, stick with us here on Live Impact News. We'll be right back after this quick break. We are back with Live Impact News. Let's go to the House Homeland Security Committee hearing that is taking place right now. We had it a little bit ago. This is where the top officials from 3 immigration government agencies are testifying before that committee at the moment, before House lawmakers. This as that deadline for funding for the Department of Homeland Security is inching closer and closer this Friday. Let's go ahead and take you inside to that live hearing.
That are on the books?
Yes, sir.
Has that changed since you started working for President Clinton?
No.
So I can't imagine establishing the fact that it is a crime to skip a notice to appear. We had 10 to 12 million people who entered this country illegally in the Biden administration. As a conservative estimate, there are sanctuary cities all throughout the United States who have said, we will not comply with federal laws. That's why we're here today. I can't imagine being a DHS officer, an ICE officer, and being threatened with violence, having death threats, being doxxed, having your family identified, putting that on the internet, and violently telling you that they are going to kill you because you are enforcing the laws that are on this book that were passed by both sides of the aisle in this body. Director Lyons, how many of your agents are being doxxed, threatened, or harassed?
We've had over 8,000% increase on death threats.
You know, I'm in the middle of working a bipartisan domestic terrorism working group with another member on this committee. There is a group called Defend 612 that has come out with tactics, techniques, and procedures in Minneapolis to do things like encourage protesters to impede law enforcement, to push civilians towards legally and physically risky confrontations, to help mobilize a counter-protest, to coordinate strategies and trainings to aid illegal immigrants to avoid detention. Are you familiar with groups like this, Defend 612?
Yes, sir. We have multiple groups around that in all 50 states.
There's an article written by Christina Buttons, and I'd like unanimous consent to enter this into the record called Inside Minneapolis's ICE Watch Network. Chairman, I seek unanimous consent to enter.
Without objection.
This article talks about these tactics, techniques, and procedures that put your law enforcement agents and your agents at risk. What is different about Minneapolis? What kind of coordination have you received from the local police department that we don't see any of this in Texas? We've not seen, and there have been many ICE operations that have happened in Texas, but what's different from what you've seen in Minneapolis?
Unfortunately, sir, in the beginning of the Minneapolis operation, we didn't see any cooperation at the state or the local level, whether it be from the Minneapolis Police Department or the Minnesota State Police, which led to ICE officers and agents, as well as our other federal partners, pretty much having to defend themselves from whatever impediment, riots, or protests.
Were they told by local elected officials not to cooperate?
Yes, sir.
Is that because they're a sanctuary city?
I'm assuming that's what it is,
part-
sir, but I can't speak to the mind of those elected officials, but they were ordered not to stand down.
How did it make you feel as somebody who carries out the laws that this body has passed when you hear the mayor of Minneapolis say F ICE?
Oh, sir, I mean, from a morale standpoint, it hurts us to the fact that for decades, and I've worked since President Bush, ICE has always been in Minneapolis. We've always been in every major city and state. So it wasn't like it was a brand new thing. We've always been doing immigration enforcement. So that's demoralizing.
Commissioner Scott, are you separating families?
No.
Tell me about when you served President Obama. Has anything changed in the policy of deportation? And how many people did President Obama deport?
I don't have that number in front of me. Policies and how things are enforced do change. The laws have not changed. I believe what you're referring to is literally when someone is arrested, whether it's on immigration or whether it's a normal criminal offense, and they have children, we don't necessarily prosecute the children. But when someone's deported, if they want to take their children with them, they have that right. We do not separate them.
I hope that the other side of the aisle will read this article on Defend 612 and look at the tactics, techniques, and procedures And if this is domestic terrorism, where we have a group that's on signal that is calling out agents and doing things to interrupt, intercede, and prevent law enforcement from carrying out the laws that this body passed, that you'll have the courage to call it domestic terrorism if it is that way. And I yield back.
Gentleman yields back, and I now recognize the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Panadar, for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good morning to our witnesses. Commissioner Scott, did the ICU nurse, Alex Preddy, deserve to die?
I cannot comment on an ongoing investigation, sir.
Do you believe that he deserved to die? Should he be killed by your agents?
I'm not going to comment on an ongoing investigation, sir, before it's concluded and all the facts are available.
Do you agree with CBP Commander Bovino's statement that Alex Preddy was planning to massacre law enforcement agents?
I'm not going to comment on an ongoing investigation, sir.
Director Lyons, did Renee Good deserve to die?
Sir, I can't comment on ongoing investigations.
Director Lyons, do you agree with Secretary Noem and Vice President Vance's characterization of Renee Good as a domestic terrorist?
Sir, I can't speak to their comments as that they're their own, but as an ongoing investigation, I can't speak to that.
Director Lyons, what did your agents mean when he said, "You raise your voice, I erase your voice"? In the video just that we have seen, all of us have seen.
Sir, I'm not aware of that video that you have, sir. I can't comment on what that officer has said.
Does that statement, if I show you the video of that, does that statement reflect the value of your agency? And does ICE respect and adhere to the First Amendment?
Yes, sir, ICE does respect and refer to the First Amendment, but that doesn't respect, your statement that you said doesn't represent the values of the men and women of ICE.
Commissioner Scott, does CBP respect and adhere to the First and Second Amendment?
Yes, we do.
Don't you agree that Alex Preddy had every right to exercise his First and Second Amendment freedoms before being shot in the streets by one of your agents?
I believe that every person in the United States has a right to their constitutional rights.
Look, I have heard and seen enough. I'm just sick and tired of your agents running around in our cities, in our streets, causing illegal activities. ICE and CBP thugs are roaming our streets, attacking our communities, using our children as bait, referring to people as bodies and numbers, targeting people for their accents and the color of their skin, and killing American citizens, all while showing zero remorse for their actions. Director Lyons and Commissioner Scott, do you think President Trump will pardon you and your boss, Kristi Noem, before he leaves office, just like he has for insurrectionists and his political allies? Do you believe President Trump will pardon you? Because, go ahead.
I'm not going to speak on behalf of President Trump, but I'll tell you, I signed up for this job to protect America, and I'm very proud of the service that I provide, and I don't need a pardon from anybody.
Well, you better hope so. You better hope you get been pardoned, because you will be held accountable for the absolute disregard of the law your agencies have shown over the past year. Your agencies have lost the trust of the American people, with millions taking to the streets to the illegal actions of your agencies.
Okay, just wanted to kind of take a quick break at this point to tell you, with this being a live broadcast, every once in a while there will be a language that is said, or in this case you can see during this hearing. We are going to try to turn away from this at the present moment. And I want to turn our attention now to something that is taking place in Santa Fe, New Mexico. If you recall, and you've been with us on the stream yesterday, we spoke about this. There is a hearing taking place in New Mexico right now. It's a trial, actually, against Meta on the dangers of child sexual exploitation on social media and whether or not the social media giant has done enough and what it advertised it would do in order to keep children safe. Okay, let's go ahead and take a live look now into that trial taking place in New Mexico.
Yahoo had gotten a new CEO, and they were not supportive of security or safety. And, you know, when you work in security and safety, the CEO support is everything, because what you're trying to do might not be popular with other people in the company. So you have to rely on their support to be able to do your work correctly. And at that time, I gave a talk at Stanford about how you kept people, at Stanford University, about how you kept people safe. And somebody at Facebook was at that talk, and like a week or two after that, I got the phone call being, would you like to come work at Facebook?
And did you go work for Facebook?
Yeah, I went to work for Facebook. I remember when I got interviewed, Mark Zuckerberg interviewed me, Sheryl Sandberg, who was COO, interviewed me, all of the senior executives interviewed me, because it was kind of a big deal at the time to bring in somebody senior from the outside to be in charge of the things that I was responsible for.
And at the time you were first at Meta, from 2009 to 2015, was Facebook popular with teens?
Yeah, we had you could say how old you were. And at the time, Facebook was popular with everybody. So there were a lot of teens using it. There were, in really interesting ways, I really learned a lot. Part of the work that we did is listen to teens closely. And so, yeah, it was absolutely popular with teens.
And when you were at Meta in 2009 to 2015, to whom did you report?
In
To whom did you report? Who was
2009 to 2015?
Yes.
Samir Patel.
And as part of your job in that first period at Meta, did you meet regularly with Meta's top executives?
Yeah, I would meet as part of reviewing what I was working on regularly every 6 months with all of the top leadership, including Mark Zuckerberg and the people who managed Meta. And then anytime something bad happened, I would be interacting with them. Whether I heard it from them or I heard it from somewhere else, my job was to keep them informed about what was happening and what we were doing about it. And then a few times when there were some efforts critical to the company, they called them lockdowns. Mark Zuckerberg would approach me and be, would you help me with this lockdown? And that I did that a couple of times.
And you talked about the teams that reported up to you. How many people in all were on teams that you managed at Meta between 2009 and 2015?
By the time I left, it was hundreds of people.
And to make your job duties a little less abstract, and you've talked about some of them specifically, can you describe any of the specific projects you worked on between 2009 and 2015?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we found that that while many teenagers were experiencing different kinds of harm, like bullying, somebody spreading rumors about them, getting threats, all these kinds of things, that they weren't using the reporting tools. And so we asked them what was going on with them, and they told us the reasons of the bad experiences they were having. And we changed the reporting tool to match that so that we could give them help. And then at the end of that, we asked them, like, did we help you with this issue? And so we did. That's an example of sort of a reporting. I can also offer examples on like security. I can offer examples of lockdowns. I mean, it was the 6 years that were pretty big.
Okay. And during your time at Meta, again, in that first period where I'm going to focus, unless I tell you otherwise, did Meta have policies about the activity that it would not allow on its platform?
Yeah, that was from a product an engineering perspective, that was one of my responsibilities.
And what were those policies called?
Community standards or community guidelines.
Okay. And speaking generally, because we're going to get into this in more detail, what kind of activity did Meta prohibit on its platform at that time?
So drug sales or use, nudity or pornography, bullying, threatening. There was a list of things, a long list of things that were covered by the community standards.
Okay. And did that include policies related to suicide and self-harm content?
Yes.
And policies related to nudity and sexual exploitation of children?
Yes.
And were you familiar with those policies, Mr. Behar?
Very.
And between 2009 and 2015, did the user reports that you were talking about typically reflect activity that violated Meta's policies?
They did not.
And what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so when you look, and this is something that I worked extensively during my first 6 years, is there's this thing called an action rate, which is when somebody reviews something, a ticket, will they say, yeah, this violates or this doesn't violate? And so you really care about, like, how many of those, based on how many reports get submitted, get acted on. And that tells you, of the reports that are submitted, how many violate the policy. And so a concrete example of that, let's say talk about nudity or pornography. You have a very specific definition of what that means. Is there a female nipple, for example? And so you get a photo reported for nudity or pornography, and there's somebody who looks at it, or a system looks at it and finds a nipple and says, yeah, that's it, and that's acted on. Then there's stuff that's kind of on the edge, and that's the little part. And then there's stuff that gets reported that you look at and you go, I'm not sure why they reported that. And we found that in context, once we studied it, there was always a really good reason why somebody would submit that report, even though the content did not show a nipple and as such did not break the letter or implementation of the definition of the community standard.
And so were the reports that were being submitted that didn't violate Meta's community standards, was that because that wasn't problematic?
Your Honor, these are leading questions.
All right, so counsel, I will sustain on that if you can rephrase, please.
Can you describe the severity or non-severity of the user reports that you were seeing during that time?
Yeah, so one of the things that we had when I was a senior executive at Meta, this was around 2011, 2012, is we ask kids what's happening, and then we asked about intensity, like how bad is it? Like how's it making you feel and how bad do you feel? And so we found that for different categories, the kid would tell us, I am very afraid, right? Or I'm very angry, I'm very sad. And those are the ones you really care about because that's when there's danger to the kid. And then we looked at what was the content that the kid was reporting. And sometimes it was, I'm gonna come find you after school and totally kick your ass. And that was clear, and you could say, yeah, that makes sense. And sometimes it was, man, your glasses look great, right? And you go like, that's really not bad, is it, right? But at the time we were working with academics and doing focus groups in schools to understand the harm, and then we understood that what was happening is it was a kid that was getting mercilessly bullied at school about their glasses. And then when you post that on Facebook, all of your friends see it, it gets amplified. It's really different than when it happens in school. And so they got really distressed by that to a point it was very bad. And so then we knew in 2012 that the job was not to take the glasses comment down. That's not the right thing to do. That the job was to let the kid let us know when something bad was happening, and then depending on the emotion and the intensity, we would tell them different things. If it was mild, then we would be like, talk to your friend, figure it out. But if they told us they were very afraid, all these things, then we would be like, find somebody you trust. We gave them something specifically designed to help them. And then we measured whether that worked for them. And so I would say that, for example, and you can say this of any category, that if you take the harm, most of it, 90-something%, is not something that you would delete according to community standards, but that when you got the context, it was clearly harmful for the kid.
All right, and describing the work that you did at Meta between 2009 and 2015, were you proud of that work, Mr. Behar?
Yes, absolutely.
And can you describe some of the other work that you were proud of during your term at Meta?
Yeah. So, for example, when we got a police report about like a kid getting groomed, which we were talking about earlier, we developed tools that looked at messages that kids were getting. And based on the messages, we were able to proactively identify when kids were at risk of that and do an intervention that protected them. We also did work around suicide prevention that understood that the issue there, right? I mean, again, it's really separate, nothing to do with the content, I believe. It was more to do about...
Looks like we're having an audio issue, not on our end. I do believe that might be on their end at the moment. Okay, let's see if that is working.
List of things. If you give me a topic, I'll give you an example.
What about your work with NCMEC? Was that something, and the jury heard NCMEC, but perhaps you can remind us what that stands for?
Yeah, I think this is 2011. I might get the year wrong. We got approached about joining NCMEC and something called photo DNA, which allows you to take pictures of child pornography and without transmitting them, being able to identify them once you know what they are. And they said we should do that, and no big internet company had done that. And when I was approached about that, I was the person within Facebook that said, we should categorically join that. It's the right thing to do. But I don't be admitting that there's child pornography on the platform. No, it's the right thing to do. And so Facebook was the first big internet company that joined NCMEC and the photo DNA program. And I was the sponsor inside the company for that.
Between 2009 and 2015, did you feel like you had the support of the company's executives to address risks to kids on Facebook?
Absolutely.
And can you describe to the jury the reason you left Meta?
Yeah, and around the time I was leaving, a little bit before that, I began separating from my wife, and I had teenager kids. And I realized after trying that I couldn't do this sort of 80-hour-a-week job of being in charge of security and safety for one of the world's biggest internet company. And it was really important to be with my kids, and I was really fortunate to be in the position where I could step away from the company and spend time with my kids while they were still teenagers.
Did you leave Meta on good terms?
Yeah, I did.
And are you still today proud of the work that you did at Meta during your first term there?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. And one little detour before we go on from here. Before you left Meta in 2015, were you involved in any conversations regarding Meta's acquisitions of Instagram?
Yes, I absolutely was.
And how were you involved in that?
Yeah. So one of the selling points from Meta's part or Facebook's part about buying Instagram was that we had this great infrastructure and team and tools and everything else for safety and security. And Instagram, as it was getting bigger, was running into all of these issues. And so the teams that I managed and the things that I built were part of the proposition that was compelling to the Instagram founders about safety and security.
And Mr. Behar, if you need to stop and take a drink.
Thank you.
Okay, again, a very interesting case here, this trial in New Mexico that we're watching at the moment. They are looking into Meta. This is against the social media giant, as you just are listening in a little bit there, on child exploitation in social media and whether or not the company is doing enough for what it said that it would do in its advertising. Certainly will be a case study moving forward, depending on what happens in that. I do believe now, Sarah, if we can, are we ready to take a quick break at this point? Okay, let's take a quick break. And on the other side, we'll have much more here for Live Impact News. Thank you for sticking with us right now. We are going to continue with the hearing happening right now in the House with top immigration officials in the country right now. This is before a House committee. They are scheduled to go before a Senate committee on Thursday. Now, before we go into this, we want to go ahead and warn you some of the conversation. We saw last time that there were some words that were on posters. We're going to try to monitor anything that might be a bit harsh or inappropriate, and we'll try to take it off the stream there. But just want to let you know, again, this is live. It's happening in real time. But let's go ahead and head to this House hearing.
Lied about it. Mr. Scott, what disciplinary action do you plan to take against Mr. Bavino?
I cannot comment on personnel actions on any.
Is there an investigation? Please investigate him.
Goes through a review
You need
board
to start enforcing discipline.
Strong for 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Chairman Garbarino, Ranking Member Thompson, and thank you to all our witnesses for being here today. Let me start with the simple facts. The border is now closed. Fentanyl poisonings are down by more than 35%. I thank each of you for your service to our country. I remember in April of 23 when then Secretary Mayorkas testified before this very committee that the U.S. border was, and I quote, secure, close quote, and not open. At the same time, under his leadership, illegal alien population surged to over 11 million. They were coming from more than 160 different countries as migrants were released into our country by the millions. That's what the Biden administration, in concert with Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas, did to America. They sold America out. The consequences of their failures were predictable. When the United States failed to enforce its border, the winners are not legal immigrants or American communities. It's the cartels, drug smugglers, human traffickers, and violent criminals. We didn't need new laws to stop this crisis. We needed a president willing to enforce the laws already on the books. President Trump did exactly that. Another promise made, another promise kept. And today, the number of illegal aliens being released into our country is zero. Zero. That's what it took a president to make the hard decisions. And America is better because of it. So my question is straightforward. Commissioner Scott, was Secretary Mayorkas telling the truth when he testified before this committee that the border was secure?
Consistent with my prior testimony, no, he was not.
As you stated earlier, the underlying immigration laws haven't fundamentally changed in decades. What has changed is how different administrations choose to enforce these laws, particularly during the previous administration. It was 100% orchestrated to allow illegal aliens to invade our country under the Biden administration. From an operational standpoint, how important is consistency and enforcement for deterrence and border control?
It's extremely important, and we keep talking about immigration, but let me remind people, border security really is national security. The cartels use illegal immigration to literally overwhelm law enforcement at the border and bring in all kinds of other threats. It's the second wave that always is the most critical. The Interior Enforcement sent a message around the world that we're not going to just let you go. It took away the marketing ability of the cartels to get people to come to the border and overwhelm law enforcement. This all works together. It's critically important because it is national security.
Thank you, Commissioner. The men and women of DHS deserve our respect and the ability to do their job effectively without mixed signals from Washington. I also want to be clear, I support the men and women who work every day to secure our borders and enforce federal immigration laws. But lately, we've seen growing strain on political rhetoric that goes beyond policy disagreement and targets the legitimacy of law enforcement itself. Rhetoric that puts a target on the backs of agents doing their jobs. Acting Director Lyons, we keep hearing calls from left-wing politicians to abolish ICE. Some, including many who should know better, have denounced federal law enforcement as secret police. How would you respond to these reckless attacks?
Sir, I can speak from personal experience, having served multiple administrations that the men and women of ICE are out there every day doing the law as it's written.
What are the consequences of not enforcing federal immigration laws?
Sir, if you look at what ICE has done, if you look at the amount of, as I said earlier, the amount of known and suspected terrorists that we removed from the country, we arrested 1,477 this year and removed 1,480. Just that impact alone, along with the 7,800 gang members, makes a significant impact on public safety and national security.
Thank you. Turning to you, Director Edlow, the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service plays a role in administering legal immigration and protecting the integrity of the system. When immigration enforcement is undermined or treated as illegitimate, how does that affect USCIS's ability to manage lawful pathways, prevent fraud, and maintain public confidence in the legal immigration process?
It makes it absolutely impossible, Congressman, and that's why we've done everything we can to administer that system now and to not cut corners that were previously cut during the last administration.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. I now recognize the gentleman from New York, Mr. Goldman. 5 minutes of questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Lyons, what guidance have you given to your agents about asking people walking on the streets of America to show proof of citizenship?
Sir, as I stated earlier, the men and women of ICE, deportation officers, special agents, we conduct targeted intelligence-driven operation. We don't walk around on the streets asking people about their American citizenship.
Really? So all of those individual American citizens who have been randomly asked are lying. Is that what you're saying?
Sir, if the men and women of ICE are conducting an investigation, whether it be for Title 8 immigration enforcement or Title 18 criminal enforcement, they'll ask someone their nationality.
Right, but that's not targeted because they're asking all sorts of American citizens, including off-duty law enforcement. Now, have you directed at any point your agents under the Supreme Court's racial profiling ruling to only stop non-white people and those who look like immigrants to ask for their citizenship papers?
No, sir, I haven't.
Now, you are aware, of course, and there's well-documented, numerous well-documented instances of people, American citizens, being asked to show and prove their citizenship. Do you know what other regimes in the 20th century required similar proof of citizenship?
Yes, sir.
What?
Sir, there was various nefarious regimes that did that.
Is Nazi Germany one?
Yes, but
Is the Soviet Union one?
I honestly,
Sir, I'm asking the questions. Is the Soviet Union one?
Yes, sir, but I totally, this is the wrong type of questioning.
I'll tell you what the wrong type
but
of
actually,
thing
sir,
is. Sir, it's my
Holocaust
time.
Museum
Reclaiming my time, sir.
If you want to go see
Reclaiming my
Nazism,
time,
that's what
Mr.
it is.
Chairman.
It's not the men and women of ICE that are out there doing it every day. So to say that the men and women of ICE are
Mr. Chairman, I'm reclaiming my time. I would like my
wrong.
time back, please. Please give me another 15 seconds because he was unnecessarily speaking. You said in your opening statement that references to ICE as the Gestapo or the secret police encourages threats against ICE agents.
100%.
The problem is you have it backwards, sir. People are simply making valid observations about your tactics, which are un-American and outright fascist. So I have a simple suggestion. If you don't want to be called a fascist regime or secret police, then stop acting like one. But people are simply just observing what they are seeing. And that's why people are making those comments. Now, I was a prosecutor for 10 years, prosecuted mob bosses, organized crime, violent criminals, the actual worst of the worst. Not a single criminal law enforcement agent that I worked with wore a mask to conceal their identity. But your department, which is a civil law enforcement agency, is defending the use of masks by your agents because of a so-called rise in threats and assaults against your officer. Now, you said in your opening testimony that assaults against ICE officers are up by more than 1,400%, which is now even more than the 1,300% that your gaslighting spokesperson, Tricia from Ohio, has recently been citing. But here's the problem. There are two separate, very detailed, very thorough investigative reports based on your own data that both conclude that assaults against ICE officers are up about 25%, which is far less, of course, than you assert, and far less than you would expect from an agency that has more than doubled its hiring and has an even greater increase in arrests. Now, why is that a problem, Mr. Lyons? It's a problem because the explanation that your agents are wearing masks because of fear of assaults or doxing is outright bogus. You and your untrained, unqualified, unvetted, unidentified agents are intentionally terrorizing our cities and communities all over this country to avoid accountability for their excessive force and their lawless actions. That is why you're wearing masks, so no one can hold you accountable, and you know that the FBI is not going to, because notwithstanding all of the investigations all of you say are going on, the Department of Justice and the FBI has stated they are not investigating those two murders. This is not the America that I know and love. This is not the America my immigrants came to. And it's long past time that you rein in your out-of-control agency and start following the law and the Constitution, and I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. I now recognize the gentleman from Arizona, Mr. Crane, for 5 minutes.
Okay, some very harsh critique there that we're seeing in the House right now in that committee. Again, this says top immigration officials are currently testifying before House lawmakers. They will be back on Thursday. We'll take that as well when they are in front of the Senate. All of this ahead of the big deadline on Friday, whether or not the government will fund DHS and meet that funding deadline. That is all the time that we have right now for Live Impact News. On behalf of myself, Eugene Daniel, and producer Sarah Calloway, we certainly are glad that you joined us. Remember, you can always download our streaming app, 13 News Now Plus, on Roku, Amazon Fire, and Apple TV. Up next is 13 News Now at noon with Ashley Smith.